Have you ever wondered what really happens after the final goodbye, when the noise stops, the dramatic confrontations fade, and absolute silence sets in? Most people expect dramatic closure or immediate clarity, but the truth is far deeper than what meets the eye. When two contrasting emotional systems go completely silent, both people experience a deep wave of suffering, yet they suffer for entirely different reasons. One person is quietly mourning the death of a genuine love they tried so hard to save. The other is struggling with an unexpected loss of control over a story they used to direct. What unfolds next changes both of their lives in ways neither could have predicted. Stick around until the very end, because once you understand the hidden psychological mechanics behind this quiet showdown, you will never view silence the same way again. If you have ever taken a stand, stepped away from emotional manipulation, and chosen your own sanity over constant chaos, leave a quick note in the comments saying, "I chose peace." Your story might be the exact spark someone else needs to realize that healing is genuinely possible. The absolute silence that follows no contact is not a neutral space. It is a battleground where two different minds begin to process loss. For the compassionate partner, the grief is heavy and personal. They replay old conversations, question their choices, and wonder if they walked away too soon. Their mind clings to the sweet moments, trying to make sense of how warmth and cruelty could coexist in the same person. They are grieving a relationship they truly believed in, holding on to the hope that love could fix what was broken. Meanwhile, the other person is experiencing a completely different kind of shock. They are not grieving lost intimacy or shared memories. They are reacting to a sudden drop in validation, attention, and power. The silence challenges their silent assumption that they could walk back into your life whenever they pleased, creating a sudden storm of frustration and confusion. When the quiet begins, it is easy to misread outward appearances and assume the person who hurt you is moving on without a single care. They might post bright pictures, stay unusually active with friends, or project an image of absolute contentment. To someone sitting in deep heartbreak, this visual performance feels like a second betrayal. It makes you ask if any of it ever mattered, or if you were just easily replaced overnight. But you have to look beneath the surface. That composed exterior is often a carefully constructed shield designed to protect a fragile ego from facing reality. Losing a steady stream of admiration and emotional reactions creates internal discomfort, even if they never admit it. Instead of showing vulnerability, they double down on appearances to keep their illusion intact. This is why you must not confuse their social media highlight reel with internal peace. The silence is often just a waiting game on their end, a temporary pause while they wait for you to break or while they hunt for a quick substitute to stroke their pride. Meanwhile, your journey through this silence is undergoing a raw emotional detox that feels painful long before it feels peaceful. In the beginning, your nervous system is in shock, deprived of the unpredictable spikes of drama, fear, and temporary reconciliation. You might feel frantic, anxious, or strangely guilty. You are breaking a deep addiction to emotional instability. But as the days stack up, the thick fog begins to lift. You start seeing past events for what they really were instead of what you hoped they would be. The confusing comments, backhanded compliments, and subtle guilt trips suddenly become crystal clear. You stop blaming yourself for reaction to disrespect, and your lost intuition begins to speak up again. As time marches on, do not be surprised if unexpected ripples start appearing in your silent pond. When traditional channels of control are cut off, the person who relied on your attention will often test the waters to see if they can still pull your strings. These attempts are rarely obvious demands. They are usually subtle, calculated, and disguised as innocent check-ins. You might receive an out-of-the-blue message referencing an old memory, a polite note on a holiday, or hear through mutual acquaintances that they are asking about you. They might drop subtle hints on social media, or present themselves as a changed soul who has finally seen the light. The intent behind these moves is simple. They want to know if the door is still unlocked. A single emotional response, even an angry one, signals that they still hold space in your mind. True freedom comes when you realize that consistency matters far more than persuasive words. Every single time you choose not to respond, explain, or defend yourself, you lock a door that should have been sealed long ago. You weaken the psychological grip of the past and build an unshakable confidence in your own boundaries. This process is essentially the slow undoing of a powerful trauma bond. A trauma bond is not genuine affection. It is a psychological loop forged through cycles of unpredictability, pain, and brief rewards. Your brain became trained to crave those rare moments of kindness, like water in a desert, making the high feel overwhelming because the low was so deep. When you cut off the supply, the withdrawal hurts, making you crave the very source of your pain. But as weeks turn into months without fresh manipulation, your brain rewires itself, recognizing that true peace does not come from unpredictable breadcrumbs of affection. The greatest reward of staying the course is the quiet return of your authentic self. Throughout a toxic dynamic, you gradually trade pieces of your personality just to maintain a fragile peace. You suppress your true opinions, abandon hobbies that draw criticism, and spend your mental energy anticipating someone else's unpredictable moods. You shrink your world until it orbits someone who never truly saw you. Stepping away gives you the breathing room to gather those scattered pieces of yourself. You start making choices without seeking approval or fearing an explosive backlash. You reconnect with old friends, rediscover buried passions, and learn to trust your inner compass again. This transformation does not happen overnight in a dramatic flash. It happens through small, steady acts of self-respect. It happens when you say no without explaining yourself, when you express an opinion freely, or when you enjoy a completely quiet evening without walking on eggshells. You begin to redefine what healthy connection looks like, realizing that love should feel like a safe harbor rather than an unpredictable storm. As your identity returns, the person who once dominated your thoughts completely loses their hold over your emotional world. Their old tricks stop working because you are no longer playing the role they assigned to you. Manipulation requires a willing participant, and without your reaction, the entire script falls apart. Silence was never about changing the person who hurt you. It was always about restoring your relationship with yourself. You are not waiting for them to realize your worth or apologize for the damage. You are building a life so rich, grounded, and peaceful that their opinion no longer carries any weight. The ultimate goal is not to win a silent war, but to wake up one day and realize you no longer care who is winning. You have taken your life back, and that is the only victory that truly matters. You are realizing that the space created by complete silence is where true self-discovery actually takes place, far away from the noise of constant emotional demands. When you stop managing someone else's unpredictable emotions, an incredible shift happens within your day-to-day existence. You suddenly have energy left over for your own growth, your own creative outlets, and your own physical well-being. For a long time, your brain was stuck in a high alert state, constantly scanning the room for subtle mood shifts, analyzing double meanings in simple text messages, and bracing for the next inevitable emotional storm. That continuous state of tension exhausts your nervous system and drains your vital energy. When that chaos stops, the sudden quiet can feel almost disorienting at first because your body is so used to survival mode. You might find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, feeling uneasy simply because things are calm. But as the silence continues, your mind slowly learns that peace is not a trap. The constant mental fog clears out, making space for deep clarity, sharper focus, and an overwhelming sense of relief. You start to notice how much simpler life becomes when you are no longer trying to solve problems you did not create. The subtle trap many people fall into during this period is treating silence like an indirect form of communication. They hope that by remaining quiet, the other person will eventually realize what they lost, feel a sudden wave of remorse, and come back with a genuine apology. But using silence as a strategy to change someone else keeps you tethered to the very cycle you are trying to escape. True no contact is not a dynamic mind game or an attempt to teach someone a lesson. It is a decisive, quiet withdrawal from a game that was rigged against you from the start. The moment you stop caring about how your silence makes them feel is the exact moment real liberation begins. You stop checking their social media profiles to see if they are hurting. You stop analyzing their subtle online hints, and you stop rehearsing potential future arguments in your mind. Their choices, their opinions, and their path forward become completely irrelevant to your personal peace. You recognize that seeking closure from the person who broke your trust is like asking the fire for water. Real closure is something you cultivate privately within yourself by accepting the reality of what happened, choosing to honor your own worth, and walking away without needing the last word. When you fully commit to this quiet path, you also begin to re-examine the foundational beliefs you held about relationships, empathy, and personal boundaries. Many kind-hearted people mistakenly believe that having boundaries is unkind or selfish. They spend years over-explaining their choices, making endless excuses for bad behavior, and tolerating disrespect in the name of patience and understanding. But total silence teaches you that a boundary without enforcement is just a wish. True kindness does not require you to sacrifice your own mental health or burn yourself out to keep someone else warm. As you move forward, your standards for who you allow into your personal space undergo a complete transformation. You become far less impressed by charming speeches, grand romantic gestures, or short bursts of intensity, and far more appreciative of quiet consistency, honesty, and emotional safety. You start valuing people who respect your time, listen to your feelings, and show up reliably without playing confusing games. You realize that a healthy connection should feel like a steady, supportive foundation that elevates your life, not an exhausting puzzle you have to solve every single day. Every step you take in this silent journey builds a deeper, unbreakable trust with yourself that no one can take away. You start taking pride in the quiet moments where you chose not to react, where you resisted the temporary urge to send a bitter text, and where you kept your focus squarely on your own healing. You realize that your life is no longer a performance staged for someone else's validation or control. The narrative has shifted entirely, and you are finally back in the driver's seat of your own story, shaping your future with intention, self-respect, and total clarity. The pain that once felt like an endless weight transforms into a quiet, enduring strength that guides every decision you make going forward. You are no longer waiting for permission to be happy, nor are you holding your breath for someone else to change. You are standing firm in your own truth, knowing that walking away from chaos was the most powerful choice you ever made. The silence is no longer an empty void filled with longing. It has become a sacred, peaceful space where your authentic self can finally breathe, rebuild, and thrive without limits. This profound internal shift naturally begins to spill over into every other area of your life, transforming how you navigate your daily routine, your professional goals, and your personal connections. When you stop pouring your energy into a black hole of endless emotional conflict, you suddenly discover a vast reservoir of stamina you never knew you possessed. Projects you put on hold for months finally get your full attention. Personal ambitions that felt out of reach become tangible targets, and your ability to focus returns with incredible, sharp clarity. You start waking up without that heavy, lingering sense of dread sitting in your chest, replacing it with a quiet enthusiasm for what the day might bring. The physical manifestations of chronic stress, the tight jaw, the restless sleep, the constant stomach knots gradually dissolve as your body realizes the crisis is truly over. You begin to nourish your mind and body with things that actually serve your long-term well-being rather than just helping you survive another day of uncertainty. This physical and mental restoration is the ultimate proof that leaving chaos behind was never a mistake. It was the essential reset your system desperately needed to survive and eventually flourish. As your energy restores itself, you also gain a remarkably clear perspective on the people you choose to surround yourself with moving forward. In the aftermath of toxic dynamics, your inner circle undergoes a natural and healthy filtration process. You find yourself naturally pulling back from superficial connections, gossip, and unnecessary drama, preferring depth, sincerity, and quiet mutual respect. You start seeking out relationships where communication is straightforward and honest, where you never have to guess where you stand, and where your boundaries are honored without a fight. The friends who truly care about your well-being will celebrate your growth, respect your quiet moments, and support your journey toward self-discovery without demanding that you perform for their approval. Simultaneously, you develop an almost automatic radar for manipulative behavior in new acquaintances. The subtle red flags that you use to rationalize or ignore the casual disrespect. The subtle put-downs disguised as humor. The sudden hot and cold behavioral shifts now instantly trigger your healthy protective instincts. You no longer feel the need to fix, rescue, or educate people who show you who they are. You simply step back quietly, guard your peace, and allow them to carry on without your participation. This heightened awareness leads directly to a profound mastery over your own emotional responses, turning past vulnerabilities into your greatest shields. In the past, someone else's displeasure, cold shoulder, or passive-aggressive comment could derail your entire week and send you into a spiral of self-doubt. Now, having walked through the intense fire of complete silence, you realize that another person's emotional state is not your responsibility to fix or manage. You learn the priceless art of stepping back and observing situations rather than immediately jumping in to react. When faced with provocation, unreasonable demands, or sudden hostility, your default setting is no longer panic or defensive over-explanation. It is a calm, composed, and unshakable neutrality. You realize that your silence and non-engagement are far more powerful than any argument you could ever win. By refusing to hand over the remote control to your emotions, you strip away the power that toxic individuals rely on to manipulate you. You become completely unshakable, grounded in the understanding that true strength does not lie in having the last word, but in having the ultimate self-control to protect your inner peace at all costs. Ultimately, this ongoing evolution leads to the complete reclamation of your self-worth, anchored firmly in your own self-validation rather than outside approval. You come to understand that your value as a human being was never dependent on how well you could manage someone else's mood swings or how much abuse you could endure in the name of loyalty. You stop viewing your capacity for deep empathy as a weakness that invited mistreatment, and instead start viewing it as a powerful gift that simply needs proper, intelligent boundaries to protect it. You look back at the person who first entered that quiet period with a profound sense of compassion, recognizing the incredible courage it took to choose the unknown over familiar suffering. Every quiet day you spend honoring your own needs, trusting your instincts, and building a life you love adds another layer of strength to your new foundation. You realize that the end of that toxic dynamic was not a tragic loss or a personal failure, but the necessary clearing of land for your real life to finally begin. You stand fully tall in your true identity, confident in your future, knowing that you possess the strength, clarity, and self-love required to build a peaceful, joyous, and deeply fulfilling life entirely on your own terms.